Hello, Artist Charles Wolf here, back again for another painting video. Let's get right to it. I'm going to start out today with some Cobalt Blue, some Titanium White for this sky, like I normally do. I'm using a 1-inch chip brush. It's a kind of a cheaper brush that I can use a couple of times and then toss if it seems like it's not holding up very well. Sometimes they last longer than others. Just kind of have to see how the bristles are holding up. I'm using very broad, very loose strokes today. I'm not being terribly careful with what I'm doing here. I'm working very quickly. This is at normal speed of painting. I've not sped this up at all. I'm just working very fast. And I'm adding layers of white. So I started with blue, added a little bit of white to that, a little bit more white, and as I go further down my sky into these clouds, I'm going to be adding more and more white. I'm going to take and start blending upwards a little bit. Lots of downward strokes for this sky this morning. I am painting on a red vermilion gesso. It's a primer that I'm using, an acrylic primer, and I've put a whole layer on there and let it dry completely before going on to paint. A little bit more white. I'm going to be starting to make smaller and smaller strokes as I move forward here and create more details in my sky. The reason why I changed my sky later on is because I found that it was a little bit too detailed for the style of painting this becomes. This is going to be an abstracted landscape. It's going to be a very bright, bold, and colorful painting with some unusual colors like aqua, purples, reds, things that you don't normally see in nature, and it's sort of an artistic impression or a interpretation of the natural world. There are 3 artists who I need to reference for this painting who really inspired me to create this piece. One is Dave Usher. He recently made a very bold choice to take some risk. I think the actual painting was called Take Risks. And in that painting, he had some reds and some oranges and some yellows on some hills. And they were very bright. And being inspired by seeing this painting, I wanted to do something along the same lines if I could. 2 others I should mention is the Vermont artist Woody Jackson. He has very famous cow paintings, and a lot of them have a red undertone that is the fields that they're standing in. It's very, very neat, and I'm going to be pulling from that as well. And lastly, I also need to reference the wonderful comics artist by the name of Bill Watterson. He does the Calvin and Hobbes comics. I am specifically thinking about Spaceman Spiff, where the hero goes out to distant planets, and they're sort of based on some of the scenes you see in Utah with the bright orange and the yellows and the reds, and they're very fantastical and just awesome. Of course, I'm not copying any of their work. This is my own original painting and composition. I am just taking notice of their sort of color palettes and styles, attempting to incorporate that into my technique. I'm using some bold, bright Naphthol Red right here with a 1-inch chip brush, and that's going to be the basis for my field. Using a dirty brush, I'm going to grab some cadmium yellow medium and start to spread it out here. One of the great benefits of using red vermilion gesso, or just a red gesso in general, is that it enhances a painting by providing warmth. This prevents the work of art from being too cold or sterile. White canvases are absolutely fine to paint on, and that's fine if you want to do so. I switched real quickly here to a Prism Violet, which is a new color for me, kind of exciting, and a number 10 bright brush. The gesso layer is great because you can see that even though I'm not perfectly covering the canvas on the bottom there, it's okay because the red underneath is kind of showing through the red layer above, and it has some variation and some texture, and it looks very nice. Switching over to a number 8 filbert brush, I'm going to be adding some more cadmium yellow back into this. I sort of lost it within the sea of red that I've added. This piece is sort of a new style for me. I've never done one quite like this, and so part of this painting is an exploration process for me. And I am putting paint on the canvas similar to how I would approach one of my abstracts, which I'm more comfortable doing. I'm trying to just put paint there, respond to it, adjust things as I see it, and allow my inspiration and my intuition to guide me forward. If I see something that I like, I might enhance it or promote it in some way. If it's something I don't like, I may cover it up later on. I don't really know where this is going to go. At this point, I'm just putting color down onto the canvas and seeing what happens. I have a clear idea of what I kind of want for this piece. I knew I wanted a red field, some bright yellow trees. I wanted a bluish sky, maybe not quite like I have it right now. And I knew I wanted some very colorful background mountains, which I'm starting to put in now with my 1-inch chip brush and my bright brush here. There's some more of that Aqua Green, very, very cool. Some Cadmium Yellow and some Prism Violet back on those mountains. Now here's some more of the Naphthol Red. I'm just putting all kinds of contrasting colors next to each other, creating some movement and some excitement to the eyes with all these bright colors interplaying and intermingling with each other. One suggestion I have is between each new color set, unless you have a lot of brushes, always clean your brush off between each new color. That way you don't have them bleeding together too much, because I want this to be a high contrast composition. Lots of pure pigment, almost in a post-impressionistic way, laying right next to each other. Grabbing some more of that beautiful cobalt blue and putting that down using lots of horizontal strokes, and I'm starting to blend that into the aqua green that I have there. A little bit more of the cobalt blue here. Going back again to the Naphthol Red at the very, very top. Again, this is a process of exploration. Very exciting for me to do something so bold and something so different. I might do a couple more paintings like these, especially if I get some good feedback on this one. If you want to leave me some comments in the comment section below, leave me a like, share this video with someone you know, I would greatly, greatly appreciate it. Okay, moving forward, we have some aqua green, some more blue. I'm going to grab some more cobalt blue and darken up that sky just a little bit. Add some more white to start to blend that out, and I'm going to blend out clouds here. Again, they were just too active, and I want the focus to be on the foreground and onto those mountains. So having such an active sky was competing. There's just too much going on back there. So I'm going to simplify it quite a bit and help define this top edge of these mountains right here with that white. Yeah, that looks a lot better. Taking some more blue, I'm going to blend the sky together, hitting some of that white, which is okay, making a lighter blue, and just blending that together a little bit better. Yeah, that's looking really well. Adding some more blue here. Going to keep spreading it out left to right. Just being very gentle with the brush. Not trying to press that hard onto the canvas. Just moving the paint around. As we get further into this painting, be sure to clean your brush regularly and frequently between the new color changes. It's very easy to start getting muddy colors, especially because we're doing very bright colors like this. We want high contrast. Now, for these acrylic paints, you can use just a cup of water. And so I took like a 20-ounce soda bottle and cut the top off of it, and I used that to clean all my brushes off, and it works pretty well. I'll have some paper towel handy. To clean my brushes, put it into the water, I'll swirl it around really good, press it against the side, and then I will, after shaking it out a little bit, put it onto the paper towel and dry the rest of it accordingly. I'm adding some Prism Violet here to the center, as well as to the back mountains there, as you have seen. Taking some of that aqua green plus the cadmium yellow medium, I'm going to create this nice sort of limey green color. It's a very bright color, and it's going to complement the yellow and the red particularly. Red and green are complementary colors, meaning that the red is not used, primary color red, is not used to create the green. These two colors have a high contrast placed next to each other. So whenever you have green next to red, it makes the green seem that much more green. When you have the red next to green, it seems that much more red. So complementary colors like this are great ways of enhancing and making your painting seem more vibrant, using some more of that bright lime green there. There was more yellow in it in the bottom, and then up top I added more of the aqua green, and that made it much lighter. Other complementary pairs that you might be familiar with, we have purple and yellow. As you can see in the mountains, I have that going on, as well as blue and orange. Now, I don't have any orange in this painting, so blue and red is going to have to make do with that. Taking some of my phthalo green, just a touch of the cobalt blue, and adding some cadmium yellow to it, I decided that I wanted a darker, more contrasting patch of green in here at the bottom, so I'm going to use the darker phthalo green instead of the aqua green. I found that the aqua green is a much brighter green. If I use the phthalo, I get a much deeper, richer, bluer green, and that's what I want. Looking here, I'm adding some cadmium yellow to the right-hand side and then sort of blending it back into the phthalo and creating somewhat of a gradation from the deep, rich phthalo green to a lighter, kind of yellowy green. Back to that brighter aqua green and cadmium yellow with a filbert brush. Put some in over this blue. Now, later on in the painting, I'm going to put some trees back there. At the time, I had not thought about where I was going to put my trees. I think looking at this that I should have gone with a brighter green on the right-hand side, just like the left-hand side. That way, when you put the darker trees in front, you can still see what's behind. I didn't do that there, so what it meant was at the very end, I had to go back and in between the branches, I might have done it even off camera, put in some more of the brighter green so that the trunks were visible and very clearly distinct from the background. You want to make sure that the background is visible. If you are putting something darker in front, put a brighter background behind it and it'll show through. Adding some aqua green there as well as some cobalt blue. Now, I really don't think of aqua as a green. I mean, I guess it technically is related to the green family, but that's the actual color name. That's why I keep using it. Aqua is really kind of a blue. Adding some Prism Violet here, it makes a nicer transition from that bright green above to the bluish green, purple to the Naphthol Red. And because blue and red make purple, it creates that transition point. Adding some more Naphthol Red to the bottom here, and a few more spots, just trying to make it a little bit brighter, more red. Just going to smooth this out here on the right-hand side, and really, I'm sort of anti-painting, if that makes sense. I'm taking away paint because it's a clean brush there, so if you use a clean brush, sometimes you can pull off some paint, especially if you have a little bit too much. So it's a great tip and a trick for taking off some paint. Adding some cadmium yellow, again using the filbert brush. I'm going to clean it very often, so just keep cleaning your brushes at each color change. Really important if you're going to have these high contrast, fantasy-like abstracted landscapes like this. High contrast, you need the colors to be pure, so clean your brush often. You have aqua green here, and then it's going to be followed by some more cobalt blue. Again, pushing the colors in the background, just having some fun with it, just kind of making adjustments until it looks somewhat like what I want and what I kind of see in my head. Okay, adding a little bit more of the cadmium yellow. Unfortunately, this right-hand side is going to be covered up by the forward trees, so you won't see it quite as clearly, but that's okay. You got to paint everything, and then sometimes you cover parts of it up, and that's just what happens. Naphthol Red, again, still not happy with this front edge. Gonna keep playing with it. A little bit more there. I'm trying very hard not to get too caught up in any one area. I'm sort of bouncing here and there and looking for spots to put more contrast and little details, like I'm putting some of this Naphthol Red in the far back just to kind of make it pop. And again, I'm thinking about the red against the green, playing on that combination. Here's some yellow just along this front edge. I'm trying to define, I guess it's sort of a lake on the left-hand side here. So I'm trying to define that front edge with a pop of the yellow against the purple, another complementary set. The purple is the primary color, and yellow is its complement. I've time-lapsed this for you because you don't want to watch me drying for 5 minutes, but I'm just trying to dry this off a little bit because I'm about to go to the next step, which is the foreground trees. One of the great things about acrylic painting is that it dries so very quickly, and it's very easy for you to work on to the next step and the next layer. When you're doing oil painting, like I like to do sometimes, you have to often do it wet on wet, so it can be a little bit more of a challenge to not ruin what you have behind when you put things on top. So you have to add like oil and linseed oil and other primers and maybe other mediums so that it doesn't stick too much to what's already there. But when you're doing acrylic, you just have to dry it off. As soon as it's dry, you can start adding more layers. So it's a little bit easier and a little bit more accessible, especially if you're a beginning painter. Adding some more Naphthol Red here. Trying to clean up that bottom edge of that green I put there. Now this is kind of fun. I took some titanium white and added the smallest little dab of cadmium yellow to it to give it some warmth. And it's going to contrast nicely with that blue there. And I wanted sort of a comic booky type comic strip style cloud, so I decided to paint one. It's sort of in that style, and I think it looks pretty effective. Taking a little bit of the cobalt blue, I add a touch of that to another set of white that I have on the palette there, and I'm going to put some of that lighter blue underneath so it makes the warmer white stand out. I'm also trying to clean up that top edge of that ridge line of the beautiful, kind of crazy colored mountains. Blending this out. All right. I'm going to grab a smaller bright brush. I'm going to grab some of that raw umber. Now, for this raw umber, I suggest you take a little bit of water and add it in very gradually, a little bit of water, until you get the consistency of ink. You want it to be inky so that it comes right off the brush pretty easily. If you find that it's kind of clumping, like you can see at the bottom it's clumping a little bit, then just add a little bit more water, which is what I actually did right there. You can see it's starting to flow a lot better once I added some more water. I'm using a very feather, delicate touch. I'm not pressing hard at all. Very, very gentle with this when you're doing it. I found with this tree limb that I went a little bit too far to the right. It curves too much. So I'm going to adjust that back by adding some more of the sky color in just a moment. I don't want the tree going off the top of the canvas. I want it to be contained within the painting. I'm also trying to keep in mind the proportions of this painting, and if you get too big with it, it can look kind of funny. If you wanted to add a greater amount of detail in this painting, you could add things like some little bushes right by that lake back there, make them probably medium size so you cover up some of the lake on the left hand side. I'm just doing this as kind of a demo, doing it kind of fast. This is my first foray into this style of kind of crazy, colorful painting. And so, keeping that in mind, I decide to not go too much into the details, but leave it a little bit more sparse. It's at this point that I realize I'm just getting way too crazy with this farthest right branch, so I decide to immediately cover up some of that brown. I'm just not happy with it. Dry it off really fast here, and once it's dry, I should be able to cover it no problem. And there's some more of that warmer white color, and that covers it up just perfect. Some of the white with a little bit of blue to it. Using that filbert brush, I'm going to cover up this tree branch, cleaning up these bottom edges, trying to make them look like they're tapering better. I probably should have done those top branches with a liner brush, and actually I end up grabbing one here in just a moment. I was trying to do it all with the bright brush, but it just was being a little bit unwieldy for me. So sometimes you just have to be like, well, this is not working. Let's find a different brush. Try to use the biggest brush that you can to do the job, but if it really isn't working, then grab a smaller one. Alright, now I'm using raw umber here, and I can't remember if it was on camera or off camera. I might have added a layer of purple to it, Prism Violet, and I think that looks really, really cool. There's nothing wrong with using the brown, kind of naturalistic looking, and make it look a little bit more fantastical. Using a very light touch here, and there's that liner brush. Again, very delicate, delicate touch when you're doing this. Little tiny strokes, little movements, and adding water will really help you paint these branches effectively and easily. We don't want this to be hard. We want to make it as simple and as easy as possible. This painting is a great painting to try if you've never tried to do such a bright, sort of crazy colored painting, because there's not too much you can do that's incorrect with it. If it doesn't really quite look right, then you can maybe obscure some other point and make it look even more like an abstract. If you want it to be more detailed and have more bushes and little things happening here and there, more impressionistic with it. There are so many great directions you could take this style of painting, which is why it's so exciting to me. Having this beautiful red field here really for me was a really nice way to kind of break out of always painting everything exactly the same or getting into a rut. Even if this painting is not my best painting ever, it really doesn't matter. To me, we should be having fun and really just enjoying the process of painting. I really mean that. I'm not just saying that because it's what you say. Art should be fun. If you are an artist, you may find yourself in a rut or just not feeling inspired when you go to do a new painting. So my suggestion is try something crazy and just kind of off the wall, perhaps do an abstract, do something more like this. And you may find yourself surprised that when you go back to doing something that's a little bit more naturalistic, that you may look at things in a new way. Conversely, if you're more of an abstract painter, try painting something that is more realistic looking. You may find that that process will change the way you think about your abstracts. Using a liner brush, I am going to put in some small, distant tree trunks back there. Now, those leaves I'm going to put on in just a moment are going to cover up the mountain, which is a little unfortunate because I really like the way it looks right now. Now I could have left the tree here in the front without any leaves on it, but when I was first inspired to create this painting, I could clearly see in my mind the red field and bright yellow trees, which is why I decided to go forward and add the bright yellow leaves. Once I had let this painting dry, I looked at these leaves, these yellow leaves I'm putting on right now, and I realized that they were a bit too patchy, and so I'm going to add a little bit of green in the middle between them in just a moment to kind of thicken them up and make it look less spottish. If I had been thinking about it beforehand, I could have done purple with the yellow, which would have continued my complementary theme, and the purple would have kind of clashed against the yellow, but that would be really, really crazy. So I think that my choice to go with the green is just fine. Do what you want with this. This is just kind of showing you what you can do, what you might do, and hopefully you can take this idea and go 100 different ways with it. You're free to definitely to copy along and paint this painting. Just know that you can't resell it because that would be breaking copyright, but I'm happy for educational purposes. If you want to recreate this painting or some facsimile of it, that's just fine. I appreciate it. Thanks so much. Moving on, I've added some phthalo green back there in the far distance, and I've taken a little bit of some Mars black and added it to the raw umber mix that I already had. So the raw umber plus the black, and that's going to help define these back trees a little bit better for me. I'm also going to add a foreground, a little bit of foliage, some bushes and things like that in front of that tree line right here. Now I start with the aqua green, and I add some yellow to it, and that's going to give me that kind of brighter green look. I could have kept it like that. I just thought it was a little bit too bright in contrast to the background, so I added some more violet there. Being bold here, I grabbed the aqua and tossed it right into those tree leaves. Now, that could have been interesting, aqua and yellow, but I went with something else in the end. So when I went back later that same day to repaint the part of this painting, I decided to take a different approach with the piece. Grabbing some of that aqua green and some cadmium yellow, more aqua green than cadmium there. Adding some more cadmium yellow for some bushes. Looks pretty good. Now they get a little bit high up, I thought. Now looking at it here, maybe they were okay. So looking at this, I think I could have kept them as they are and that would look just fine, but I decided to lower them a little bit using my fingers. I'm going to pull them down just a minute here. Grabbing some more of the aqua green and some cadmium yellow, and I'm going to put some lighter highlights of some grass here right at the bottom. Again, that green contrasts so wonderfully with the red. The more I can push that contrast, the better this composition will benefit from it. Yeah, there's my fingers there, pulling down some of the paint a little bit. I'm going to go back and with a liner brush and redefine some of those tree trunks. Off camera, I think I added a little bit of some lighter green in between them to further refine and define where those trunks are happening. I just felt I got a little bit dark back in that region. This painting is coming along nicely, only a few more minutes before we are finished with it, very close to the end here. If you would like to, you can see a lot more of my work on my art blog, impulsiveartistry.blogspot.com. Again, that's impulsiveartistry.blogspot.com. There you'll find some of my photography. You'll find, of course, many more of my paintings. I do articles about painting, about being creative and having a creative lifestyle. Music, I have guest artists from around the world all the time on my blog showcasing some of their work. Not just painting, but photographers, musicians, composers, all kinds of people. Head over there and check it out. Again, it's impulsiveartistry.blogspot.com. I put new posts up about twice a week, so check that out. You can also follow me on Twitter, on Facebook, and on Instagram. I put a lot of my nature photography and a few of my paintings on there as well. Look for Impulsive Artistry. You should be able to find all of my stuff. Okay, nearing the end here, I'm just going to grab some more of the Phthalo Green, pull down some of the trees here, sort of blend that together a little bit better. I'm going to grab some more of that brighter aqua and cadmium yellow. Just a highlight, a little bit more, define where those trees are happening back there. Working in little layers like this is always an effective approach, so that way you can kind of see how your progress is going and make adjustments as you need to. Very little strokes, just gentle pressure, just kind of dabbing the very end of my paintbrush there, blending together a little bit. Grabbing some more of the yellow, a little bit more of brighter green mix, a little bit more of the phthalo green, and a little bit more of the phthalo green in the back there for contrast. Yeah, that was a lot better. Very nice. So you see how thick and lush the leaves are in the background trees? I decided that I wanted to do the same thing with the foreground tree. You can see that there is the lighter green mix of the aqua plus the yellow that I'm adding there. Okay, jumping forward in time, later that day, here's some more yellow, again using the bright brush. This canvas is totally dried at this point. You can see that I've added some touches of aqua to the trunk there on the bottom forward tree as well as some purple. The purple, I hadn't used this color before, and I realized that it darkened up quite a bit. The red came out, so it's kind of a reddish violet. Now I know for the future that my purple needs to be lightened up a little bit if I'm going to be using it. Okay, just trying to find the right spots to put some more colors, some more cadmium yellow. Kind of bouncing back and forth between cadmium yellow and some of the phthalo green and the aqua green plus cadmium yellow, bright green mix. A little bit more yellow on those back trees. Again, my original idea was a red field with some bright yellow trees, so I'm trying to capture more of that. I think that if I had stopped right here, very, very yellow and bright, I really like the way it looks right now. I decided to put some more contrast with this darker phthalo. It got a little bit spotty. I didn't quite like the way it looked, so I decided to blend it together. But when I did that, it made my forward tree a lot more green. I guess I could go back and add a little bit more yellow to it and kind of recapture that original idea. It's sort of a balancing act. See what works and what doesn't. You just keep trying new things, never give up, and just keep working at it, and eventually you'll figure out a way to make it look fantastic. Clean the brush off, add some more cadmium yellow here. Cadmium yellow and adding some more highlight colors back there. Clean brush and blend this together a little bit better. Adding some lighter green there. And dabbing. Alright, we are nearly finished. A little bit more of the cadmium yellow to finish it off. And we will call this painting finished and done for now.